deciding in some states that you cannot bring water to people standing in line waiting to vote, deciding that you're going to end voting at 5 o'clock when working people are just getting off work, deciding that there will be no absentee ballots under the most rigid circumstances. It's all designed, and I'm going to spend my time doing three things. One, trying to figure out how to pass the legislation passed by the House, number one. Number two, educating the American public. The Republican voters I know find this despicable. Republican voters, the folks out outside this White House. I'm not talking about the elected officials. I'm talking about voters. And so I'm convinced that we'll be able to stop this because it is the most pernicious thing. This makes Jim Crow look like Jim Eagle. I mean, this is gigantic, what they're trying to do. And it cannot be sustained. And do everything in my power, along with my friends in the House and the Senate, to keep that from becoming the law.
Is there anything else you can do about it besides passing legislation?
The answer is yes, but I'm not going to lay out a strategy in front of the whole world and you now.
Let's not pretend for a single second that the bills sprouting up in states across the country are intended for anything other than making it more difficult for the people who voted for Democrats to vote at all. Period. Full stop. Consider what's happening in Georgia and other states under the guise of election security. An election doesn't become more secure by eliminating Sunday voting, the day that statistically black voters show up at the polls in higher numbers than any other voters. An election doesn't become more secure by eliminating weekend voting for runoffs, where black voters showed up in the highest numbers for the most recent Georgia runoffs where both Democrats won. An election doesn't become more secure by having the same number of drop boxes in rural counties with a few thousand people and urban counties with millions of people. An election doesn't become more secure by allowing Republican-led state legislatures to appoint the majority of the state election board and take over county election boards in order to challenge election results. Claiming that this makes elections more secure is like claiming that we need Roy Moore to make malls safer for kids. If elections need to be made more secure, it is from the very people implementing these so-called security measures. The fact is that the reason the 2020 election wasn't able to be overturned is because the infrastructure to do so wasn't there. What Republicans are doing in states across the US right now is creating that infrastructure. They are taking steps not to make elections run smoother or more efficiently, they're giving themselves the power to gerrymander and suppress black votes and create long lines in exactly the right neighborhoods. And even if all of those efforts fail and people manage to still find a way to vote, they're making it so that party loyalists are the ones who can adjudicate claims of fraud that we all know holds zero basis in reality. The point is to legislate Democrats out of government. The fact that they're then committing this election theft under the guise of election security is a testament to just how shameless they are. It is for that reason that I say that passing S1 or HR1, the For the People Act, is our first, second, and third priority. Nothing else comes close. Because think about it, if we don't secure elections from these brazen anti-democratic efforts now, then it won't matter how many bills Democrats introduced regarding women's reproductive rights and raising the minimum wage and providing a path to citizenship and protecting LGBT rights or justice in policing or strengthening unions, because we will never be in a position to pass anything. The For the People Act is the basis on which all of the Democratic agenda rests, an agenda that the majority of Americans support. If that doesn't get passed, no priorities will get passed. And for that reason, the filibuster cannot remain as it is now. If Republicans are going to abuse the filibuster by using it to block not just any and all legislation, but legislation aimed at protecting the right to vote, then we have to ask ourselves what's more important, protecting some arbitrary relic of the Senate or protecting the rights of millions of Americans. If your answer is the former, then you're not interested in democracy, you're interested in codifying corruption. And luckily, this is a point that didn't at all escape Joe Biden.
Filibuster. Filibuster. You know, with regard to the filibuster, I believe we should go back to a position of the filibuster that existed just when I came to the United States Senate 120 years ago. And that is that it used to be required for the filibuster, and I had a card on this. I was going to give you the statistics, but you probably know them, that it used to be that from between 1917 and 1971, the filibuster existed. there were a total of 58 motions to break a filibuster. That whole time. Last year alone, there were 5 times that many. So it's being abused in a gigantic way. And for example, it used to be you had to stand there and talk and talk and talk and talk until you collapsed. And guess what? People got tired of talking and tired of collapsing. Filibusters broke down and we were able to break the filibuster, get a quorum and vote. So I strongly support moving in that direction, in addition to having an open mind about dealing with certain things that are just elemental to the functioning of our democracy, like the right to vote, like the basic right to vote. We've amended the filibuster in the past. But here's the deal. As you observed, I'm a fairly practical guy. I want to get things done. I want to get them done consistent with what we promised the American people. And in order to do that, in a 50-50 Senate, we've got to get to the place where I get 50 votes so that the Vice President of the United States can break the tie, or I get 51 votes without her. And so I'm going to say something outrageous. I have never been particularly poor at calculating how to get things done in the United States Senate. So the best way to get something done, if it holds near and dear to you that you like to be able to, anyway, we're going to get a lot done. And if we have to, if there's complete lockdown and chaos as a consequence of the filibuster, then we'll have to go beyond what I'm talking about.
So to be honest, failure is not an option here. If the For the People Act isn't passed, along with whatever steps are necessary to get that done, then the country we're living in right now will be a fundamentally different one. And that should be a sticking point for you regardless of party. It shouldn't be acceptable to anyone, Republican, Democrat, or Independent, that the most core tenet of our democracy should be used for partisan gain like it's being done now with Republicans. We shouldn't care if this gets done with 0 Republican votes or 50 Republican votes, because Democrats have a mandate to protect our most fundamental right as Americans. Republicans can decide for themselves what side of history they want to be on, but their intransigence shouldn't dictate our commitment to protecting democracy. To see more videos like this, don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel and click the notification bell. And please subscribe to my podcast, No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen, where I not only break down the biggest stories of the week, but I also interview major players in the world of politics, including Vice President Kamala Harris, Elizabeth Warren, Nancy Pelosi, Katie Porter, Pete Buttigieg, Cory Booker, Jamie Raskin, and many more. Again, that's No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen, available anywhere you listen to podcasts.